Welcome to our Skills of the Future podcast. And our topic today is the art of mastering employee engagement. My name is Christine Lamothe, president of Perennial Talent, a competency-based talent management solutions company. I have the pleasure today of welcoming three outstanding HR leaders on our panel discussion. Lana Burton. Hi, Lana. Wave. She is the Director of Talent Acquisition at Maple Leaf Foods. Lana is a highly driven strategic leader within the talent acquisition industry. Welcome, Lana. The next guest is Kimberly Southern Weber. She is the Director of Global Learning and Organization Development at Maxar Technologies. Kimberly is a senior level organizational effectiveness and talent management professional. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thank you.
And our third guest is Morgan Bello. Morgan is Vice President of People and Culture at YMCA and YWCA here in the National Capital Region of Ottawa. Morgan brings a wealth of corporate, executive, operational, and human resources experience to his management expertise. Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you, Christine.
It's so nice to have all of you join me on this panel today to discuss employee engagement during this pandemic. It is a topic that comes up over and over again. So I'm glad that I have these three experts with me to discuss this further. Our HR community is always looking for advice, solutions to a lot of problems. So I view this forum as an opportunity to help our HR community. As you know, COVID-19 has disrupted how we work, where we work. The uncertainty of the pandemic means that employee engagement, of course, is at a higher risk. When I think of employee engagement, there's a lot of definition, but the one that resonates well with me is the extent to which individuals find their work meaningful, energizing, they feel inspired, proud, and they are attached to the organization and their work. Conversely, disengaged workers feel maybe no real connection to their job, and they tend to do often the bare minimum. So organizations all over the world right now have had to rethink how to engage with their employees that are working remotely. So my first question to the panel, and I'm going to start with you, Kimberly. What are some of the issues you've had to deal with in engaging employees working remotely from home?
So first of all, I'm honored to be here on the panel and with Lana and Morgan. Some of the issues that we've had to deal with, I would say, stem from the diverse nature of our employee population. So our team members, we have manufacturing people, we have people that are in, that need to be on client sites, and then we have a lot of people who are able to work from home. And one of the challenges that we've had to deal with is, what does engagement look like when you have employees across different, in different workplaces? And the other challenge that many of us are dealing with when we're in a remote posture, as I'm working from my basement right now, how do you balance family and work when you're not leaving your workplace, right? My workplace is my home and my home is my workplace. And so it's been, I think what we've had to do is listen to the employees, listen to what their concerns are, and figure out at the individual level, how do we help people get through the challenges of either having to be on site and the challenges that come with that because of fear of safety and interaction with others, or actually being at your home and having to work and stay engaged and productive. And also, I think there's another challenge that we've had with, what does productivity mean? And how do we shift that as managers so that we're not holding people to the same standard when they're dealing with so many issues that have come along with the pandemic. So those are some of the issues that we've dealt with at Maxar.
Thank you, Kimberly. Lana, what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts are an experience are quite similar to Kimberly. We're also a manufacturer in the food space, and most of our workforce is still physically present, but we have tried to remove many of the people who are normally physically present in our plants and have them work from home, and this is not popular with the people who are physically there, who are used to having their finance and human resources and all of that present physically. So that's been super challenging, that blend. I would say for the people who've always been at the corporate office and whatnot, there isn't a concern that way because they've always faced people. I actually think there's been some benefit to the fact that we're all from a connection with our plants, in that those who are working remotely are actually connecting through video with our plants more, and they're getting to see us more. Where normally it might have been a phone call in the past, video technology, I think, is allowing us in some ways to better connect with people that we normally didn't before. I would echo the work-life balance challenge. And we're seeing that more and more, and it's not something that was highlighted as a concern as much in the past when it came to engagement as it has been over the last year. And I think it's that there's no separation from work and home if you're working from home, and it's not there for anyone from the executive level down. I think that there's also some aspects that, you know, we've come to understand that not for work from home from everyone is not the same. And we've had to offer a lot of flexibility when it comes to how and when people work, due to having children, or maybe they have parents they have to look after, or whatever it is. Our lives have all really radically changed in terms of what we need to do during the day compared to the past. So that's been something that you know, we've certainly seen as well. And one last point would be onboarding. So the onboarding of new people remotely, and I was one of them. As I was the first one, is challenging as well, because having people connect and build new relationships in an organization and get to know the culture and the values and all that, it can be a lot more challenging remotely.
Absolutely. Thank you. Morgan, what are your thoughts?
Well, thank you, Christine, for having me, and Kimberly and Lana to share this, you know, this interesting discussion. I think I have to say, you mentioned about COVID. I have to say that COVID certainly is something horrible that has affecting globally. I have to say that COVID helped us to understand that we are truly a social species. And I'm not talking about how fast the virus is spread around the world, so fast, and that speak about how we integrate, how we socialize. I think that COVID helped us to understand that we rely, as was in the past before, to survive in cooperation. That is when the human species are, to understand that that cooperation was suffering when we decide to send abruptly everyone at home to work. In our case, I think I have to say we have a really interesting experience, and for me, a huge learning curve, because I had to have, for instance, over 400 colleagues that are frontline colleagues that they couldn't go anywhere. And I have others 300 that can be working from home. So what we found challenging was how provide to all of them that sense of security for those who have to stay, And for those who have to leave, how this experience of COVID work. And again, going back, something important, as my colleagues are describing, COVID and working from home immediately affect the culture. We notice tons of people referring to lack of engagement, disconnection with peers. One of them even self-described as invisible colleagues. So it truly affects the cooperation. I will give an example. We did our anonymous survey, and we found that people was thinking twice before set up an appointment with the supervisors, because they know I have to have use a Zoom or call meeting, have to have a conversation face to face through this new technology. So what we are describing is that truly COVID shows and that the cooperation was affected, the integration, and also shows that we create quickly a more stressful work environment. Many of our colleagues says, Morgan, I cannot work from home. We have kids, pets. What's funny, how many of you sitting in this have a conference call and doorbell sounds and pets jumping, and that's part of how engagement was affected in general scope.
Thank you, Morgan, for sharing that. So I'll start with Lana. How well equipped do you think managers are in dealing with these challenges that you had previously mentioned?
So I don't think anyone was equipped at the beginning, because they were facing it themselves. And so it's not like it was a pre-planned, we had a pre-planned pandemic rollout for what would happen in this scenario. And so I think everyone was struggling. I think what I would say is that, strong, because they were going through it themselves, there's a certain level of empathy for what other people might be going through, to help, to help those reporting to them with how they're adapting and whatnot. And I think there's been, in our organization, a fairly high degree of vulnerability around leaders expressing how it's impacting them, and it's okay, if a kid pops in or whatever happens. Like, there's only so much that that you can do. I think that there's innate things that managers may or may not have had that help them along this way, and then the organization took over to offer like tools or suggestions for helping others to cope. But I honestly don't think anyone was really equipped to deal with this scenario, and that we had to pull together as an HR organization really, really quickly to help offer some solutions.
Kimberly?
I think one of the challenges is that the goalposts continue to move the longer we're in this COVID posture. So it's a year. We've been in this for almost a year. And I was yesterday looking at some emails that came out right when we started our work from home posture. And I think all of us thought it was going to be a couple weeks. And so I do think we were equipped to handle a couple weeks, okay, maybe a month. Now it's going to be a couple months. And so what I have found is, for the managers that have been more resilient and who have had more of a growth mindset, figuring out how do we work through this together, they are the ones who have really been equipped. Some of the managers that have really struggled the most, I think they just keep thinking about, when do I get back to the office? When do I get back? When is it going to go back to normal? And I think that is something that we're all, or many of us, are finally realizing, getting through our thick skulls, that that's not going to happen, right? The future of work is going to be so very different. So I do think that managers were somewhat equipped. I also think that teams, we call it the level playing field because now everybody is on the same Zoom screen for 75% of our population. And it's brought a lot of teams closer together. So I think for the teams that have kind of come together and have a stronger sense of belonging, that leads the managers to even being more well equipped because they know their people better. They've seen the kids and the dogs and the fish and whatever it is. And so that connection, I don't know that it necessarily existed at the beginning of the pandemic, but I think as we've gone through this, we've become more and more adept at how does this work and how do we really, how are we okay about caring about one another in a way that we still are able to get our work done. So I think kind of mixed bag, but the longer we're in it, the better we get at it.
Yeah, good point. Morgan?
I have to compliment exactly what Lana and Kimberly say. I remember when everything started back in January, February 2020, we started to share some staff emails, communication. We thought that this would be fine, just a matter of a couple of weeks, everything will be fine. And as Lana said, we was, of course, not prepared. No, absolutely. I think everybody was surprised with the fast evolution of the pandemic. And I noticed that as many other organizations, people and human beings start to suffer and struggle with uncertain and ambiguous of the situation. So I remember talking with our colleagues in the leadership circle level and talking about what we need to overcome the situation. And what we find out is people really was struggling to deal with how can they innovate, how you can grow and continue working when you don't know what will happen tomorrow. So as Kimberly was describing, it's interesting to see like 1 year ago, we're still talking about this. And we can say today we found a few core elements that make us feel a little bit more in control, although the ambiguity is there and the unpredictability of this situation is still there. I think that we found a few structure for what we do. And we found that, for instance, having a structure daily check-in with our staff is successful. So it's not just simple, have a random, have a structure check-in using technology as being successful for us. After a year, we learned also that provide a consistent communication with all the staff is important, but also allow them to understand that we respect their privacy. So there are many of them that they don't want to even have the cameras on. So we learn to adaptate on these and say, okay, you don't want to use the camera, you want to be at home, but you just wake up, you want to be in pajamas, that is fine. We want to just do. So we learn to grow on this. Probably one of the most successful piece, and this is connected what I said before on how we recover that interaction that is human species require, is we create social space for interaction. And using the technology, we create days where we didn't have a topic to talk, was a free show up in the meeting. Everybody was able to show up in pajamas if they want, coffee or breakfast, and just have 15, 20 minutes to socialize. That was important for us. So as probably Lana and Kimberly say, we're still learning. We are still struggling with the ambiguity and the unexpected of the situation.
Thanks, Morgan. Really good points. We've had podcasts before, and competencies is our thing. That's what we do. And I was interested in finding out, how can competencies be used to promote employee engagement? Lana, do you have any thoughts on that?
Sure, yes. So obviously there's some competencies, and Kimberly called out, one very important one, resilience. So I think there's competencies that we can help employees build by identifying what are the most important factors that are allowing leaders to continue to be successful through this time, and what competencies are allowing for that, right? Resilience probably be one of the bigger ones. And then how do you help build people's resilience, right? So I definitely think it can play a factor. I also think competencies linked back to your values and the behaviors of your values and your cultures can be like a glue that helps pull people together as well. And that's something that we've been focusing on more. Is we revamped our values last year, and it was coincidental. It wasn't because of the pandemic, but now we're looking for opportunity to help people, connect closer to those, and help to lead through them more, so that we can see that consistency throughout the organization. And I think those traits aren't the same for everyone. So I think the traits that we may require for manufacturing leaders in our organization versus those supply chain or whatever is not necessarily identical, other than I think the value-based ones, which are quite similar. And the other thing, and I don't know if this is competency based, but you touched on the beginning of meaningful, like people being energized and having meaningful connection, and that really is through your culture and your values, and feeling like you're seeing that, and what is the bigger picture, and how can we communicate to the vast majority of people in the organization. And actually our CEO does weekly communications to the whole company about everything that's going on. So there's all the buckets of work that are going on, and there's recognition in that too of people who've been involved in that, and so there's a lot of transparency that helps people to connect back to what's meaningful that we're doing as an organization right now.
Good points. Because competencies, as you were saying, even managers' competencies required to keep that engagement. So a good communicator on a regular basis, those are all, behaviors that feed into that. Kimberly, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. You said that, Lana, that you revamped your values. We launched a competency model during the pandemic. So we built a leadership framework and launched our competency model, which is serving as a framework for our senior leader and manager development programs. And what we're finding, we just launched them last month, and what we're finding is that when people know what are the desired behaviors and what are the rewarded behaviors, I think it's to that meaningful word, it's becoming more, it is becoming more meaningful. It's giving them a sense of purpose and a sense of wanting to accomplish something. So getting better at something that's been defined for them rather than previously no definition, and it was all, informal competency models and rewards. So I think as we see that filter through the employee population, competencies are extremely important to engagement and understanding what do I need to be and how do I show up for myself, for my team, for others, so that I'm doing a great job and helping my team members.
Thank you, Kimberly. Morgan?
Yes, well, I just need to compliment what my colleague says. I think that truly employee engagement must take practice daily. When we talk about engagement, we all thinking that, making huge recognition for the staff once a year or so on. And we need to go to the basics that this is a systemic practice that is putting in place. And for that, we need the right competencies. And as you are describing, Christine, perennial talents is one of the strongest firms that we actually have the pleasure to see their competential model, because COVID helped us to understand that we knew and we have to change and evolutionate in terms of our new competencies required. As I was saying before, ambiguity. I cannot do a master degree tomorrow about ambiguity. I cannot go to university, take a course about how deal with pandemics, as what my colleague was describing. So how we learn to update our competencies based on the needs. And you describe a good example, Christine, communication. So what is needed through COVID was improve our communication. And I will give an example. Aside what Kimberly and Lana was saying, that they have strong communications in their company, we are doing exactly the same. We have we duplicate our times, sharing news every week with our colleagues about what is going on, but we try to make it personal. And I will give an example. One of the most important things for us is try to make every staff feel important. And for that, we are doing a strong exercise in the leadership circle, in the VP levels and our senior team, to remember the names of every staff and how we make more meaningful connections while COVID. So not just saying their name, stop for those who actually work in the frontline area to say, how are you? How do you feel? How's your family? Those connections make us feel that COVID truly was a game where we need to engage every single person. And for that, competencies was an essential discussion that we have early in our stage. What was needed probably has not changed so much right now. So I think it's something important to continue checking while this pandemic is still in place. How you want to have a better and productive workplace will require from us explore immediately a new competency for that.
Okay, thanks, Morgan, for those thoughts. My last question to the panel is, and it's sort of a segue to what you've sort of been talking about. It's come out in each of you. Some of the creative solutions, the solutions that have worked that you've put in place to sustain or increase that employee engagement, and what the results of that were. Lana, do you want to start?
Sure. So probably the single largest focus for us has been mental health initiatives. And let me start with, we were quite involved in this space prior to the pandemic. We've gone much deeper into it. So we continue to have we've had speaker series for the entire year. And we've started to build on that with different initiatives, like we have a like a yoga, like a move. It's called, I can't remember what it's called, but it's like a move. It's like a little event they have like twice a week, where they have a live instructor do yoga or a light form of exercise. Because we've talked about mental health from the physical, from your what you're doing from a meditative standpoint, what you're doing to take care of yourself. So we've talked about it from many different aspects. And we've had series too where the employees themselves have come on and spoken. So I would say that has been our largest focus as an organization. And then, what I was speaking to earlier around connecting our values and what we're doing in the community. So one of the other things is we're an essential service. I think everybody here is, but food is took a whole new meaning on it, especially at the beginning of the pandemic when everyone was like clearing out grocery stores and whatnot. And so I think people really came to realize the importance of their role. But that also puts a certain amount of pressure on every individual. You know, one of the things I hear a lot is I feel down, but I feel guilty that I feel down. I feel guilty because I have a job. I feel guilty because it could be worse. I'm not, you know, I'm not suffering like everyone. So there's this like, there's this factor that, you know, you have to really help people through, and that it's okay to not feel okay. And that you don't have to do it in a comparison way. It's not about how it compares to everybody else. It's your own experience is valid. And some of the things we've been doing more specifically when it comes to talent acquisition is to help make things easier, to allow our hiring managers and our HR partners to have more time. So we've been doing things like standardizing our processes and helping to create helping to remove duplication where there's duplication in efforts in our processes and things like that. So we've been doing some practical things as well to try and ease up the workload and the impact it has to our organization.
Those are great creative solutions, and especially with respect to mental health. There's been a lot of initiative. Kimberly, what's the organization been doing? Some of the solutions you've seen that have really helped.
Yeah, we have also, to echo what Lana said, we've had a major focus on mental health, and my company is a lot of engineering, and aerospace engineers, so not necessarily people that are always comfortable talking about their emotions and how they feel, and so a focus on empathy and how to be with others when they're dealing with struggle. And then I would say one of the solutions that we've had is to be really measuring and tracking engagement, and not just from a how engaged are your employees, but really how are they doing from a COVID perspective. So we built out a pretty robust employee survey program, and we've been tracking people. And one of the questions that we ask, and I was thinking about this when Morgan said it, is just how are you, right? That's one of the questions that we ask right off the bat of all of our employees at the beginning of our surveys. And then we take those results, and our senior leaders work from those results, making sure that we are addressing any issues that come out of those surveys. And then I would say the other thing that we've really focused on is development. We created what we call our Maxar Leader Learning Series, and it started in the mental health world. So how do you have empathy, and how do you work with teams that might be struggling? And we've been able to evolve it into more managerial skills that are things that we don't necessarily talk about all the time, but it's been a great opportunity for skill development for managers. And we just launched our Maxar Learn series, so we're taking it to all employees. So how do we make sure that we continue to broaden skills and engagement with employees? So those are some of the things that we've tried to put in place, and we are seeing more and more people attend. We're seeing lots of feedback on our, I don't know if you all have Slack, but there's a lot of engagement and interest on Slack channels. So yeah, those are some of the things that we're doing to continue increasing our employee engagement.
Great solution. And are you seeing results? Is it working?
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we instituted, we also did away with our annual review process, and we've put in place quarterly check-ins. And so what we're seeing is an increase in the amount of conversations and alignment between employees and managers. And then a lot of the learning that we've crafted and curated along with that is how to support feedback, how to recognize employees, how are we engaging with people, and not just how do I get good scores on the engagement survey, but really what does engagement mean, and how do I drive that? How do I drive belonging in my team? So yeah, we're definitely seeing results.
Great. That's what we're looking for, right? Lana, I didn't ask you about that, but what about the results, like of all of the things that Maple Leaf Foods put into place, or that you put into place?
So on the mental health component,
Mhm.
we saw a drastic increase in our survey and in terms of engagement around that. So that for sure has had a positive impact. But beyond like the survey or us knowing it had an impact, we know that it has an impact every day to people if they feel supported in their mental health, right? So so yeah, we've certainly seen an impact on that in terms of the process standardizations and whatnot. That's an ongoing implementation, but yeah, we are seeing that it's being really well accepted, especially by our partners in HR, and that it's giving them more time back to do some value added things that are where their time is better spent. So
that's great. So more.
The YMCA is a charity who has been here for 154 years, as I said before, and our role is the caring of the well-being of the community. So when everything started in the pandemic, we said we need to go to our basics and take care of our staff, take care of the well-being of our staff. And as Lana and Kimberly say, we saw an important increase. And talking about the result, we saw an important increase on mental health support requests, including sick leave, family leave, workplace accommodations. So we understood quickly that this moved from a health issue to become a human being challenge across the organization, regardless level. This impact equally, regardless you are the CEO or you work in the front line. So what we said is how we can identify those elements who make our organization a little bit stronger through this. And one of that we spoke before. I think we introduce a more strong communication, and the communication is not just simple and one line where we say this is what happened. We allow them to participate, so we open diverse line of feedback so staff can identify if someone is suffering and they don't want to disclose it. And when I'm saying suffering, I'm talking about specifically those factors, family oriented problems, or we saw also colleagues experience some mental health challenge, so we allow them to participate. But we understood also that was the time for people and culture to become more flexible. So we design a program where we allow people to say, do you feel comfortable coming back to the office? That is what you want. Are you are not able to perform in your home setting as well as you want to do it in your office? And guess what? We allow people to come back. So our role was to make sure our office setting was secure for all the perspectives that you can imagine while COVID. So that was an important piece for us. In promoting more engagement, we did something special, and I think like that was a big. We spent a lot of time trying to think how to thank all the colleagues who continue working and during the pandemic, especially the frontline colleagues that we call at some point our heroes. So what we did is the home staff in more than 18 different language. Home staff, we didn't hire a company to make a translation. Home staff in 18 different language. They prepared a video to say thank you. And turns out that created among the staff and a self-recognition that this was a multicultural, massive challenge for the organization. We received tons of feedback about how emotional they feel and how proud they feel after the fact. So we continue, again, going back to the basics. We continue about saying what is important in this pandemic, and it's about It's about what we are here, Christine, Lana, and Kimberly. It's about us. It's about human being. It's about being human. It's about to understand how we can help you. And this is no time. We realized it wasn't time to go far in the Maslow pyramid. You know, it was time to go to the basic. It was time to say, how do you feel? How we help you? How you can overcome this challenge? Obviously, several tools help us to drive on that at high speed. We have an employment assistance program, AIP, and we simple say is free for everyone. Even a family member who requires support, here you go. So we put tools in the table, and the results are amazing because again, we went to the basic. We couldn't go far because we understood that this is a human being issue. Was interesting experience.
Very interesting. And mental health is so important. I mean, we don't hear often about the results of that from, people who are so isolated. There's, in my husband's work environment, there's people who have committed suicide, older people alone, people that they know. So everything that you do to help people, deal with that, and knowing they might be isolated, but they're there, is so important. So thank you, Lana. Thank you, Kimberly. Thank you, Morgan, for taking the time today to share your great insights into this topic. Not only are you great HR leaders, you are my HR warriors out there, because it hasn't been easy for people in HR. You guys have really had to address a lot of issues and problems. So be very proud of the work that you've done. It's all about supporting our HR community as well by sharing. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
Christine.
much, Christine. Thank you.